Hi, hello, Representative Parker. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hi, Joseph.
Awesome. Hello. Well, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to do this interview. I'm sure you're really busy.
No, we are always busy down here, and I'm just trying to do a few things so that next year isn't even more busy. So if I'm trying to get a few things prepared ahead of time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, really, for doing the interview. And today,
well, let me just interrupt you, Joseph. I do have to say, I love making time for the young Republicans. You're the hope of saving the world. No pressure. We just expect our young Republicans to save the world. And so anytime I can, be with you guys, it's a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And I really appreciate you taking some time because we're doing an exclusive interview here. I think this is probably the first interview that you've done about your trip to the Middle East. So talk to me about your trip to the Middle East.
Well, thank you. I'd love to. And yes, nobody's interviewed me about it, but I had a chance to tell my story a couple of times. But you're my first official interview, so consider yourself, you've scooped the story. Well done. So basically, because of running for the legislature and the whole election year before and then all the legislature, my husband and I had a 40th wedding anniversary. I know I hardly look old enough to have a 40th wedding anniversary, but we had a 40th wedding anniversary and we just never got to celebrate. And so now we're on our 41st and a half anniversary. And my husband said, in the interim period of the session, let's take this bucket list trip, this bucket list anniversary trip with just the two of us, right? So my husband was able to plan the whole thing, and he was so excited. I've never seen him so excited in his whole life to plan a trip. And I said, great, we'll just do whatever you want. And one of his dreams was to go see Egypt and Israel, and especially even more Israel. We couldn't do everything. We only had a couple of weeks, and especially Israel, because he wanted to, go to all the places that, in Christianity and, walk the path that Jesus had walked and see all those Christian sites. And so we were so excited. Well, our first week we were in Egypt. And so we did all these things in Egypt. And then our second week was in Israel. So we were getting from a city down in Egypt called Sharm el-Sheikh. And then we had to get up to Taba. And then the border crossing area is from Tama into Eilat. Eilat is the southernmost, it's in southern Israel, okay? But it's a beautiful town. So we are in Eilat, and the way we were going to get up, we had to make a connection up to Tel Aviv, because at Tel Aviv is where we had our car rental ready, and then we were going to spend the time in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem and Tel Aviv are really close. So we were in Eilat for one night. We woke up in the morning, and my husband was getting the bus tickets to go up to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And sure enough, I was getting ready, packing back up, and I turned on the television. Now, I normally can't watch television because my Egyptian and my Hebrew is not very good, and so I really couldn't understand anything. But heaven help them all in the world, they have CNN in English, which is a problem with the world because that's the only news they get is CNN news. So if that's, where you're getting. So I turn on CNN, and sure enough, there is Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to the world, to Israel, and he speaks English. And a Hebrew English translation that said, we're declaring a state of war. Hamas had bombed Tel Aviv and was currently bombing. They were showing the bombing. They were bombing Ben Gurion Airport, and they were showing all the bombings from Gaza up to Jerusalem. And he said, I'm calling out the reserves. I'm calling up the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and we are going to declare a state of war. Okay? And I'm sat on the edge of the bed at the hotel room. I go, oh my goodness, here I go again. Because this has happened once before. Well, my husband had gone to get some breakfast at a cafe and was come back, and I said, you better sit down, you better watch this. And it was just scrolling of how we're at war, and it's showing where we're sitting right now. We are just next to Gaza. I mean, we are in southern Israel, right below the Gaza Strip. And we had to get right up past the Gaza Strip. And he said, what do you think we should do? And I'm like, oh my goodness, well, we can't go back to Egypt because they're going to shut down the border. There was no doubt they were going to, and they did. We couldn't go over to Jordan. We had to go north. And I said, well, we better proceed north. And so we went to the bus station because we had the bus tickets already. And we got to the bus station, and the bus driver's running around. Everything's canceled. Everything's canceled. Lots of people. The lady at the cafe was running around, don't go north, don't go north. And we got into the bus station. He said, everything's canceled. And my husband said, well, now what? And I said, well, look what's happening. Well, sure enough, at the bus station, every door flooding in Israeli defense soldiers, all loaded, packed, camo, AK-47s, mags of bullets, all of their, all in camo, all decked out, and other guys that were like dressed, with packing weapons, which is their reserves. And I said, well, take a look. All of these people have got to get somewhere. I'll bet you they'll open up a bus. So we just sat there, and sure enough, within a few minutes, a bus, the head of the bus station came out and said, we're taking all the soldiers to Tel Aviv North, and but we'll have room for ticket holders. And so we were a ticket holder. So we're on a bus surrounded by all the IDF soldiers. And they are driving us up to Tel Aviv, but they have mobilized the military so well that now there's checkpoints every so often. There's checkpoints and they would get on the bus, they would check us to make sure that there wasn't Hamas already on a bus with soldiers. So we had a 5-hour drive up to Tel Aviv with all the soldiers, and I got to tell you something about them. Okay, all right, they're young, they're handsome, men and women, they're attractive, they're fit. They're professional. They're neat as a pin. And you know what I mean? They're just all decked out. And I'm sitting next to one of them. He has his AK-47. You can see the bullets. And it's an old Kalashnikov type. And he never moved. Now I'm fidgeting on the bus and I'm tired of sitting in the same position. He just never moved. And he's probably 22, or whatever he was. And I'm sitting, some of our 22s are out protesting what they don't know anything about. And some of our 22-year-old kids don't look this sharp and professional and disciplined. They're worried about which bathroom they can use with their support animal. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, wow, I am really impressed with this kid. He never moved the whole time. And then we got up to Tel Aviv and we got to the bus station. It was Shabbat. Now, this is the reason I think Hamas attacked it was Shabbat, was the Sukkot pilgrimage festival, and it was also the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. And so it was strategically met. Everybody had pilgrimaged into Israel, and for this special event from America, a lot of American Jews had come over for this. And on Shabbat, the Israelis do not watch any social media or television. They don't watch on their Sabbath, which was the Saturday. They don't watch though they didn't even know. So they're home with their families. They're at war, and they don't even know it. But there's nobody in the bus station. Everything's shut down. Like in the old days, which you young Republicans may not remember, but there was a day years ago where the Sabbath or Sunday restaurants weren't open. Businesses weren't open on Sundays. It's not true now, but that was custom here years and years and years ago. Well, it's still true in Israel. Everything was shut down. So we got price gouged by a taxi driver to get us from the Tel Aviv bus station to Ben Gurion Airport, because by this time I had texted my family, my sister, and said, we got to get out. They're declaring war. We got to get out. And my kids are like, leave. And I'm like, okay, sweetie, calm down. The only way we can leave is an international airport. We got to get a plane out of here, right? Or get on the ship. And so I got to Ben Gurion, and this was where it really hit home. Okay. Have you ever gone to an international airport that is just flooded with humanity trying to leave, shoulder to shoulder people trying to leave, but eeringly quiet? Because guess what wasn't happening? There was no planes. So we got in, we had tickets for a week later with Turkish Air, and my husband thought maybe for a fee, we could transfer those tickets from Friday to right now. And we went to the Turkish Airlines, and lines and lines and lines of people. And I stood with the luggage. He went and asked the person, and the lady told him later, like, take a look, buddy, take a look around. For you to fly out of this country, there needs to be planes flying in. Do you see any planes? And I go, goodness. It was weird because there wasn't a plane on the ground. There wasn't a plane in the sky. There wasn't a plane coming or going. And at an airport, you can hear them. You can see them. They're in a traffic pattern. Nothing. So the minute this happened, and Ben Gurion's always under attack. What minute this happened, the American carriers were out of there. Or they rerouted every flight, so they reroute, they're out of there. and then everybody else wasn't flying in. And so she said, we're lucky to get 2 planes coming. She said, we got 2 planes. Do you see all the million people that we've got to get on those 2 planes? You got a ticket Friday. You Americans need to toughen up, hunker down, and bunker down, and just deal with the war. Okay, that was a direct quote from the Turkish Airlines. And I'm like, okay, I toughen up, America. We're fine here, So we had a rental car, and so we thought, well, we have shelter of our own. You're on your own. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you have friends or family or whatever, but we did have a booking in an apartment. So we thought, okay, let's get to our apartment. So we drove the car, and it's Shabbat. So we drove down, and security, you see it everywhere. You see military everywhere, but we drove down to our apartment, which was in Jerusalem. Well, it happened to be right in the Jewish quarter heart of Jerusalem. Like, we are right on the curve of where the West Bank. So Jerusalem has a little carve out there on the West Bank, and they share that with Palestinian. And the Dome of the Rock is owned by them in the old city of David. Well, we get to our apartment, and I'm texting to some contacts, and they said, make sure the place you're in has its own bomb shelter. Now, it's now law that every apartment, every home has a bomb shelter, and so they've instilled them. But you could have an older place that didn't have one, right? So then you go to central areas where they have bomb shelters, and they're marked. And they even have an app. Everybody in the country has an app, and it's like something like, Israeli Defense Bomb Shelter app kind of a thing. I forget the name of it, but the minute there's an air raid, it'll give you a siren, it'll track where you are, and it'll tell you where the nearest bomb shelter is. So this happens to them all the time, right? And so we had the app and everything like that. So I said, well, before we check in, I'll wait with the car and I'll wait with the luggage. Why don't you go find out if they have one of these safe rooms? So my husband comes back. Sure enough, it has a safe room, and they showed him how to use the safe room. And so it's actually a safe room bomb shelter within your little apartment, but it's a bomb shelter. And you pull the door shut, it's all metal with double locks, and then all the windows, you pull a giant curtain of metal, very heavy, very hard to pull, across the open window and lock it down. And you suddenly are in blackness. I mean, you are in this metal bomb shelter. So my husband said, yeah, we've got one, let's get back. So we did get back into our room, and we could open the window and see the Israeli Defense Force, like everywhere, all over, on horseback, with ATVs, with like little mini tanks, and they are everywhere. And they're just lining these streets, okay? Because apparently the area we're at is very Jewish, but one of the highly protected areas. So at this point, we can't get out on Friday now. We're not quite sure what to do. My kids are dying, okay? Like, they are just dying because we've texted, and by now America's waking up and seeing the news at this point, because when the bombing happened, you folks were all asleep, okay? Because it's 10 hours different. So by now, my kids, my phone's blowing up for my kids. My son, his work gives him off work to go home and find a way for us to get out of the country. So he's trying to book us a ship out of Haifa, a cruise. Yeah, and that's how a lot of people do get out sometimes. They'll go up to Haifa, which is a port where all the ships come in. So he's booking us a cruise for the next day to get out of Haifa, okay? And we're thinking, okay, that's what we'll do. Well, that immediately cancels, like fills up. You can't even get it fast enough. You know what I mean? Because if you don't pull that trigger fast, it's filling up. The cruise ships are out of there, okay? So we thought, okay, we're really stuck. By this time, I thought, wow, maybe I should let the embassy know or try to get a hold of somebody. And I don't have their number, and our cell service. And so I called Biggs's office. I texted Biggs, and all credit in the world, please give him a shout out, goes to David Romney, Congressman Andy Biggs's staffer, who is doing all this for in behalf of Andy Biggs's office, Congressman Biggs, but David Romney, who is chief of staff. I said, David, I need your help. And he said, Barbara, I'm the right one to call. He said, we will get the consulate. You need to sign up for the STEP program, which I didn't know there was such a thing. And the STEP program is your American embassy has a program where you need to notify them where you're at and everything like that. And so he got me signed up with STEP. He got the documents to me. He said, Barbara, we've got to get you out of there. He said, you're a target. He said, you're American. You're a woman. You're an elected official. He said, it's only a matter of time And he said, whatever you do, we are getting reports that there all these random cells were pulling people out of cars and killing them all over. And because they didn't know where these random pockets were, anybody could be at risk, and especially an American. So an American standing on a corner or driving on the car, it's pretty obvious that you're Americans and you're looking, it'd be pretty easy as a target. He said, we've got reports they're pulling people out of cars and killing them. And that was all true. He said, so I'm really worried about you. He said, Barbara, I want you to, do not make a target of yourself. And and he said, be careful. You guys be smart. And I told my husband, I said, that's what we didn't want to be. We didn't want to be stupid Americans who sometimes think with impunity that they can do things, become a statistic, and then force everyone else to take care of them and pick up the price tag and the effort to do that, right? Because you think people, like what here in Arizona, when we see people, signs say, do not cross when flooded, and somebody crosses a wash when flooded, and then we have to go get them out of the flood. Why didn't you just not cross when flooded and obey the sign? We call it stupid driver law. So I wasn't going to be that. So texted David Romney through Biggs's office, and he just knocked himself out. Now, every hour of the day, and honestly, I cannot tell you what it's like to have a congressman's office love you and make you such a priority. And he just knocked himself out night and day. And I don't know if he slept because he was texting back with me all hours of the day when it was daytime and nighttime here. And he was in touch with the consulate. He was in touch with the embassies on both sides. So sure enough, I think it was several hours later, I got a call from the United States Embassy Consulate in Israel. And they called me and they said, okay, we understand you're an elected official and we need to do an emergency extraction for you. And I said, is that even possible? Okay. He said, we know exactly where you're at right now. And somehow he knew, like literally the apartment building I was in, just by what information. I don't know how that worked. But he goes, we know exactly where you are right now. You're at the such and such and such. You're on this street and whatnot. And I said, yes. And he said, well, right now, you're in probably one of the most heavily guarded areas of all of Jerusalem because of its closeness to the West Bank and it's part of the Jewish quarter and area. And he said, do you feel safe? You're fine right now? I said, we're safe. I said, we're in a brick building. We're 6 floors up. I said, we've got the bomb shelter in the room. He said, do you have a secure, bomb shelter? I said, yes, we do. A safe room. He said, do you feel like you could hunker down for a little bit and bunker down? And I said, honestly, absolutely. I said, you know what? I don't feel like you need to make me a priority. I said, I'm not that important. I said, you've got big fish to fry right now. And I could hear on the phone call with him, it was interesting. You should hear an embassy. The phone was ringing off the hook in the background and people were talking and he kept going, could you hold on for a minute? And you'd hear him answer another phone call. Yes, I'm just on the phone to Representative Parker out of Arizona. Can you hold on for a minute? And then a minute, he'd say, yeah, I'm talking to an extraction. And I said, honestly, I said, we're safe. We've got lots of security down, at the street. I said, please. And I told the consulate, I said, please take care of all of the people that are really, really in harm's way right now. Because, Americans, you could see on the news, and we had CNN going in the background, and you could see the death count or the missing count of everybody, but of Americans going up. They thought they had 9, then it's 15, then it's 25. And I said, I am fine to hunker down, bunker down, and stay. You take care of business. More important than people in harm's way. And you could hear him kind of go, oh, thank you. He said, we've got 1 million Americans calling us right now in Israel that we're trying to help. And I'm like 1 million just there already calling our embassy. And so that's what we did. Well, sure enough, I told that to the Biggs's office and I said, they're pretty busy right now. We'll hunker down and bunker down. And then we said, we can wait a few days. And we thought at that point now, okay, we'll just sit tight and we'll get out with our tickets in 5 days. Okay. And that's what we did. We could go to the market and get a little bit of food because surrounded by police soldiers, IDF. And that's what we did. So we tried to watch the news. Now, every day, what happens is, fortunately, the Iron Dome is functioning, fortunately. And I've got to tell you, it's the greatest missile defense shield system in the world. And God bless the Iron Dome, which, by the way, America has funded part of it. And you could tell the Iron Dome was functioning. It was handling it. They overwhelmed it at the beginning. At the very first attack when we were southern Israel, Gaza overwhelmed the Iron Dome, and the missiles that got through it were hitting Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Ben Gurion and different places, right? But unless they barrage the Iron Dome with more than it can handle, pretty much it can handle most of them. But not all of them. It's not 100% flawless. So every time incoming missile was incoming, and you would get, the sirens would go off. And if you have not heard an air raid siren, it rattles your teeth. And it just is piercing. And so periodically throughout our stay, the air raid sirens would go off. You would get an alert to your phone. You knew an incoming missile was coming. You didn't know if it would make it through the dome or it wouldn't make it through the dome. You didn't know if you would be that unfortunate place where that missile came down. And so you'd go into the bomb shelter, and the first time, I didn't realize they went pitch black. Oh my goodness, it was pitch black. So you made sure you took your phone or a flashlight or something while you were in there. And then you wait out until the sirens end, okay? And then when the sirens end, and that means that, that the incoming was cut. So that happened. So that's how our life was for 5 days. And then lots of texts and lots of prayers. And then by about Wednesday, we got the notice from Turkish Airlines that they had shut down, okay? They were done. They canceled our flights. Sorry, get your money back. We're not coming to get you. Okay, so then I called the embassy and I said, now what? I called, David Romney's office. I said, what about the ships out of Haifa? And he said, no, there's not going to be any more getting out of Haifa. He said, you can't go north now, okay, because Haifa's north of Tel Aviv. He said, Barbara, we don't want you going north. And that was intel that I got from Biggs's office that they knew that I didn't know, which was they were paratrooping Hezbollah in from the north. And he said, Barbara, you have to worry more about, this is Biggs's office, David Romney, you have to worry more about Hezbollah even than we even did with Gaza. They have more missiles, they have more soldiers, they have more resources. He said, do not go north, whatever you do. Because we were thinking, maybe we'd go up to Galilee, maybe we'd go up, and try to go north. He said, don't do that. He said, get back on the phone and start calling the airlines and see what you can find directly. He said, book any flight you can get. Book anything, okay? And I said, okay. Well, I got on the phone and everybody had shut down. British Air had shut down, but they were flying out their citizens, okay? And then Turkish Air wasn't flying. All the American carriers were gone. Lufthansa was a big one. They shut down. And they have El Al and Emirates left. So I called El Al, which is the Israeli, which has an onboard missile defense system of their own. And I called El Al. Well, El Al booked us through Emirates. And so Emirates, they said they had 2 plane tickets at midnight on the Friday that they said, well, the next one available is that Friday. We still had to wait. They said, if you can get yourself to the airport, get there super early on Friday. We haven't overbooked. We have 2 seats, the last 2 seats. We'll fly you into Dubai, if that's okay. I said, we'll take anywhere. Fly us to Rome, fly us to London, take anywhere. How about Dubai? Okay, we'll take Dubai, whatever. And they said, okay, but it's not illegal to price gouge. It is in America. Price gouging is illegal here. It is not when you're not in Kansas anymore. Do you know what I mean? So 10 grand to fly out, okay? Now, that's why a lot of people are still trapped, because if they don't have resources, and now, to do that and to make that expense, then you don't get the last seat, because they will sell the last seat and they will price gouge it to whoever, right? And so sure enough, it was Wednesday. I had gotten an alert to my phone. And here's the thing. On CNN, it was saying, the Biden's press secretary was saying, if you have an American passport, we're going to do everything we can to get you out of the country, right? Well, I literally had a text from the embassy, the United States Embassy in Israel, that came through David Romney's office to me, said, we have absolutely no plans or organized plans, and I could show you the text, we have absolutely no organized plans to be able to extract any American. So whatever you were hearing was not true. They didn't have organized plans. Well, David Romney said, Barbara, if you can get those tickets, buy them. I bought them. And he said, if that falls through, your plan B is I'm going to have Congressman Corey Mills out of Florida, the one that was over there. Okay. And so sure enough, we got to Ben Gurion Airport, and I mean, it was worse than the first day. Completely wall-to-wall, shoulder-to-shoulder people, just pushing through the doors and through the gates. We're into the international part, we're waiting. There's a big leaderboard, like a flight board, just massive. And you can see probably they had 40 or 50 or 60 flights listed from these airlines. So British Air going to London, or such and such going here. A lot of them going out to Greek islands and different places. Well, at noon, we were going to fly out at midnight. We got there about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Okay. And we're just sitting there with our feet up, watching the board right outside the gates of, where the planes are. We knew that our plane was supposed to leave at this gate. We're watching this board for hours, just reading and waiting and eating, and with a million people doing the same. And sure enough, they would refresh the board and you'd see more planes cancel. And you hear okay, this is canceled. Check into this consulate. This one's canceled. Check over here. And it kept turning red and red. And as the night went on, the green one, which says, on time and boarding, they kept changing to canceled. And I said to my husband, I said, okay, I probably we'll know in an hour. Corey Mills called me and said, he was my plan B. And I think he was taking people on a bus around to the Jordanian border and flying them out. Or he had chartered a private plane. I'm not sure how he was doing it, but he got like over 100 Americans out on his own with his SEAL team that, but anyway, it was almost midnight and there was two airlines still flying, and that was Emirates. Emirates had 2 planes. Now, I've never seen this before in my life. 2 planes leaving exactly at the same time, exactly to the same location, take off at the same time. So apparently there's a strategy that they do that. If one's a target, the other one won't be. But then they all took off, and so we got on this plane, and I mean, we were on the last chopper out of Vietnam, kind of a feeling, in the back, right? And you can tell it's the worst seat in the plane, right? And that nobody wants. And we're back there, and I'm going, oh my goodness. Okay, we're on. And then they take off under darkness, like they shut everything down. There's no lights, there's no power, no lights, no runway. Somehow they take off completely black, because if there's any lights, it's seen. And the military can explain that better than I can, but I guess that's a tactic. So we take off, and sure enough, they have to make this giant loop around Ramallah. Ramallah is a West Bank Hezbollah kind of, headquarters. And you can see them loop all the way around to get out of the airspace, up, over and around, out of the right airspace into, and you can watch it because, they have those computers now that you're tracking it and you can see it. And sure enough, I'm watching it and I'm going, the minute we crossed over Israeli border on the flight into Jordan, and then even past Jordan, getting closer to Dubai, I thought, whoa, we might be making it out. We might really make it. And sure enough, that was at midnight. Took off at midnight. It was like one of the last planes in the airport. And the sirens were going off at Ben Gurion because they were having missile attacks. And then we got out. We got into 4 o'clock in the morning, get into Dubai. We step foot in Dubai and we go, and Dubai was great. Like, talk about and apparently the reason they were flying and Emirates was flying, because Dubai is so wealthy, they can afford to personally insure every member of the plane. Like, there's 400 people on a plane. These planes are huge, 300 people. They can privately insure every one of them. So 300 million is nothing. If that plane was shot down, they would just insure everybody, right? And so Dubai can do that. So we got in Dubai, we said, what do we do now? And so we were able to book a flight into Boston. Okay. So we had a big layover in Dubai, great airport to hang out in, nothing but money over there. And we got into Boston like 30 hours later, after the delay. I got into Boston. I've got to tell you, we set foot in Boston. It's like, welcome to America, American flags, welcome to Boston. I'm like, oh my goodness, you could just feel the oppression lift off your shoulders. I'm like, I'm home. Dorothy has returned to Kansas. There's no place like home. I'll never leave my own backyard again. And it was this greatest feeling. And I mean, you're in America and it's just so relaxed and you're back, everything's in English and not Hebrew again or Arabic. It's just great, and it just felt great and it felt like America. And then we did have a layover and finally got, into Phoenix, but made it home. It was a miracle. I have to tell you a couple things. One, truly prayer. A lot of people really were prayerful. Shout out to Congressman Biggs and Congressman Corey Mills doing the job that the American Biden administration did not do and would not do and could not do. And, everybody should have a congressman like Biggs and David Romney at their offices to help them. And I give credit to them. And then the third thing I really want you to send home to people is the nationalism. Nationalism is a great thing. A love for your country is a great thing. But the Jewish people, they have such a love of their country that there is, and everybody's a member of the Defense Force, and the only real planes coming back into the country en masse were Israelis from around the world that wanted to fly back into their country to defend it. Now that's a spirit of pride, and that is a beautiful thing to see. And I wish that we could get back to nationalism. It's okay to say we are the greatest country in the world, or it's okay to say, I love America. Certainly Israelis are saying, I'm willing to die for Israel. We should be able to say, I love America, I'm willing to die for it, So that national spirit of the Israelis, God bless them, and that's a message we need to develop.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. That's really incredible. I remember getting the text, I don't know, not from you, but from somebody saying, Barbara Parker is home. And I was like, praise be, praise be.
I appreciate all the prayers and concern from everybody. We had so much love and outpouring.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're back, and honestly, that was a really cool story, and you got a lot of takeaways from that. With that said, do you have anything in closing that you'd like to share with everyone watching?
Right now, I think that people that are protesting against America or and for Hamas, they need to realize, okay, they need to separate and understand that Hamas is a terrorist organization. It is brutal. It is ruthless. They don't follow anything, rules of law or, Geneva Convention, or they are really a terrorist organization. And also people do not understand the Middle Eastern history. And if they think they can make a statement about that, or have a very strong opinion about how Israel is handling a brutal attack by Hamas, then they need to go spend some time there and get educated. Because be very, very careful. Because if you pick sides without something you don't know anything about, and I would send that message home. I do strongly think we have got to stand with Israel. You have to realize they are small. They are a tiny country surrounded by unfriendliness. And, in America, we talk about countries who hate us or countries that don't care about America. Imagine Israel is surrounded, okay, by countries that want the death of Israel, okay? And I mean, there's other countries that are suffering like this too. Armenia is a good one. So they are outnumbered, they are surrounded, they've got the best, Israeli fighting force, but they are a minority, and we need to protect the state of Israel. And I am going to stand with Israel. I will always stand with Israel. And I think we are seeing today an anti-Semitism that we never thought we would see again. And that, my friends, is wrong. Any kind of hatred for a culture, a race, a religion again like that. And I hope everybody understands that. We cannot have that. So there is an animosity and a hatred for Israel and anti-Jewish sentiment. We haven't seen this since World War II. Where did this come from? Because we thought we'd never see it again.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for doing the interview. And if you enjoy this interview, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Do all the things. And we're going to have some more exciting interviews in the future. And thank you so much for an exclusive interview with us, Representative Barbara Parker.
Well, thank you, Joseph. I'm just honored and flattered that you would think of me and want to take the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.